The wedding hall shimmered with golden lights, the chandeliers glittering like a sky full of stars. Laughter echoed, champagne glasses clinked, and the air buzzed with excitement. Everyone was waiting for the grand entrance of the bride and groom, the couple whose union was the talk of the town. But suddenly, the heavy doors at the back of the hall creaked open, and silence fell like a curtain. Heads turned, whispers rippled, and gasps escaped from dozens of mouths. Standing in the doorway was a woman in a breathtaking gown that seemed to float as she walked, her presence commanding and graceful. But it wasn't just her. Holding her hands were three identical little boys, their suits perfectly tailored, their innocent faces radiating the same striking features as the groom standing frozen at the altar. In that instant, time itself seemed to shatter, and every eye darted from the children to the groom, and then back to the woman they never expected to see in such glory, his ex-wife. Before we dive deeper into this emotional roller coaster, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the strength of the human spirit, please take a moment to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us bring more stories that remind us what really matters in life. Her name was Eliza. Once, she had been a simple girl with dreams bigger than her means, working long shifts at a small bakery just to keep her life afloat. She had married Daniel, the man now standing frozen at the altar, believing he was her forever. In the early days, their love had been tender and true, filled with stolen kisses, shared laughter, and late nights dreaming about the future. But dreams can be fragile, and Daniel's ambition soon turned their love into a battlefield. He came from a wealthy family that never accepted Eliza. To them, she was nothing more than a poor baker's daughter who had trapped their son. The pressure gnawed at him, and he began to resent her simplicity. Arguments grew louder, affection faded, and eventually, Daniel walked away. He divorced her without hesitation, telling himself he deserved more, someone who could match his status, someone who would make his parents proud. Eliza was left shattered, abandoned not only by the man she loved but by the life she had built around him. She discovered only days later that she was pregnant, not with one child, but 3. Alone, penniless, and with her heart in pieces, she faced the unimaginable challenge of raising triplets. Her nights were sleepless, her days exhausting. Neighbors whispered, pity filled the eyes of strangers, and yet she pressed on. She sold cakes from her tiny kitchen, saving every coin she could. There were times when she cried quietly in the dark, holding her babies close, whispering promises that one day, things would be better. They were her reason to fight, her reason to rise again. Years passed, and Eliza's small baking business grew slowly, almost stubbornly, into something remarkable. Her cakes caught the eye of local markets, then hotels, and eventually, her bakery became one of the most celebrated in the city. Behind every layer of sugar and flour were her tears, her sacrifices, and her unwavering determination to provide for her children. She taught her boys kindness, humility, and resilience. While Daniel lived in his lavish world, unaware of the miracles he had abandoned, Eliza built a life brick by brick, proving that pain can be transformed into power. Daniel, on the other hand, had spiraled into a life of superficial achievements. His wealth grew, his career thrived, and soon he found himself engaged to a woman who came from the world of prestige he had always craved. His wedding was set to be the grandest event of the year, with every detail crafted to impress. But in his heart, there was a lingering bitterness toward Eliza. Though he had left her, he resented the way she had walked away quietly, never begging, never clinging. It wounded his pride that the woman he considered beneath him had never once come crawling back. So when he sent her an invitation, it wasn't out of kindness, it was to humiliate her, to parade his success in front of the woman he thought was still struggling. But fate has a way of rewriting the scripts we create for others. When Eliza stepped out of that limousine with her triplets, every sneer, every whispered Daniel had expected vanished into stunned silence. She didn't look broken or pitiful. She looked radiant, powerful, and dignified, as though life itself had crowned her victories upon her shoulders. Her boys, standing tall and proud, were living proof of the love they once shared, though Daniel had thrown it away. The crowd's judgment turned swiftly, their eyes no longer adoring the groom but questioning him. Who was truly the failure here, the woman who had risen from ashes, or the man who had abandoned his family for status? The ceremony continued, but Daniel's confidence was shattered. His bride noticed his shaken composure, the way he couldn't tear his eyes away from Eliza and the children. Whispers filled the room, stories circulating within minutes, and the glamorous event began to feel like a theater of shame for the groom. Eliza, however, carried herself with grace. She did not gloat, she did not sneer, her mere presence was enough to remind Daniel of everything he had lost, everything he had underestimated. She left the hall before the ceremony concluded, not with anger, but with quiet dignity, teaching her children that true strength is not in revenge but in rising above. Days later, Daniel tried to reach out. Regret gnawed at him, and for the first time in years, he confronted the emptiness inside. But Eliza had moved on. She wasn't the same broken woman he had left, she was a mother, an entrepreneur, and a survivor who no longer needed his validation. She had built her own kingdom, one where love, not wealth, defined worth. And though the boys bore his face, their hearts belonged to the mother who had never abandoned them. By the end of this journey, the lesson was clear: never measure someone's worth by the wealth in their pockets, for true richness lies in resilience, in love, and in the ability to rise when life tries to break you. Eliza's story was no longer one of betrayal, but of triumph. She had turned her deepest wounds into her greatest strength, and in doing so, she taught her children, and everyone watching, that dignity and perseverance will always outshine pride and arrogance. If this story touched your heart, please support Kindness Corner by liking this video, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who needs to hear it. Your engagement helps us spread stories of hope, courage, and redemption. Sparkle's special request: comment below with one word that describes what Eliza's journey means to you. Your words might inspire someone else who is struggling today.